everyone, welcome to Math 1 LS3 computer programming tutorials. In this video, we're going to learn the basics of Python. Before you begin, please make sure that you've uploaded your file correctly. In order to do that, make sure that your file name ends in IPYNB and the notebook sign is present. Once you open your file, you're going to see that the code is stored in different cells. You can run each cell independently from the other cells. It is very important to run the first cell before you begin working on your assignment. The first package, matplotlib, which we call PLT in our questions, helps you to do plotting. And the second package, numpy, which we simply call NP in our questions, helps with mathematical computation. Once you run the cell, you're importing these two packages, and once it tells you that you're ready to go, it means that they've been imported successfully and you can begin working on your assignment. If you do not get the message, you can simply go back and run your cell again. You also have to rerun the cell every time you go back to your assignment. Each line that begins with a number sign is simply a comment. These comments are skipped by Python and they are not codes. These could be your instructions or your notes. You can store different things in Python as variables. You can simply do this by choosing a variable name and then assigning what you want to the variable. It is very important to note that the equal sign here is not actually an equal sign. You're just telling Python that whenever I say frogs, I mean 10. But that does not necessarily mean that every time I write 10, that means frogs. So if you decide to flip this equation and say 10 equals frogs, that is going to give you an error because the number 10 does not always mean frogs. You can also store text as a variable on Python. However, you have to make sure that you use quotation marks. You can also change the value of a variable by simply redefining the variable. One of the most important comments in coding is print. Print allows you to display things, and if you print a variable, it simply shows you what's been assigned to the variable. For example, here we printed time, and as you can see, what was printed was 4.5. Python reads your code in order. For example, initially frogs was defined as 10, so when we printed frogs initially, it was printed as 10. But later on, when we redefined frogs as 5,000 and printed it, we can see that it was printed as 5,000 this time. You can store a group of items together on Python using a list. In order to do that, you have to use a square bracket and start listing your items and separate them using a comma. We can always ask Python to give us an item in a list just by giving it its position. You can simply do that by putting the position number in square brackets beside the list name. Once you print that, you can see the item at that position. It is very important to know that Python starts the position numbers at 0, so the first item in a list is at the 0th position. In this list, we have the 0th, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd positions. It is also very interesting and useful to know that if you use negative positions, Python will start counting backwards. For example, position -1 would be the last item in a list. Make sure that the position that you're looking for exists. For example, in a list of 4 items, if I look for the 4th position, it does not exist. Since we start numbering at 0, the last item would be at the 3rd position, so this would give us an error. We can also change an item on a list. In order to do that, we need to find the position, and once we have the position, we can redefine the item at that position. In this example, we have redefined the first item on the list. We can also add items to a list using the append command. Using this command, we can add any item we want to the end of the list. For loops are very important in coding. These loops do a certain command on a range of variables. The range includes the lower bound and goes up to but not including the upper bound. For example, in this loop, I starts at 3 and goes all the way up to but not including 7. In order to understand this loop better, we can see that I starts at 3 and 3 is printed. Then I becomes 4 and 4 is printed, and it goes on until the loop ends at 6, not including 7. The command that is repeated through the loop has to be indented. This indentation allows us to see what is going through the loop and what commands have to be repeated. For example, snow monkeys is not indented in the first one, but is indented in the second one. This makes a big difference between the results. In the first one, T just goes through the loop, and after the loop, snow monkeys is printed. But in the second one, every time T goes through the loop, snow monkeys is also printed, which makes it very different. Now that you've learned the contents of this tutorial, you can go through these real examples and see how you can use these techniques in these examples. Thank you for watching, and let us know if you have any questions.